The rain whispered against the rooftop of Owoicho Adum's mansion in Abuja. He stood by the tall window in his private study, arms folded behind his back, staring out into the gray sky. The lights of the sprawling compound shimmered in puddles forming on the polished stones below. But inside him, there was only silence. Owoicho was a man known across Nigeria as a titan of wealth, a businessman who owned fleets of vehicles, oil blocks, and properties stretching from Akure to Lagos. Yet tonight, as thunder murmured in the distance, he felt like a prisoner in his own palace. His wife, Onyinai, only smiled when there was money to spend. His daughter, Anabai, lived for Instagram and designer handbags. Only his son, Adoga, ever seemed to really see him. Dinner was quiet that evening, as it often was. Owoicho sat at the head of the long glass table, watching them all. Onyinai didn't even glance in his direction. She scrolled through her phone, tapping and smirking at fashion reels. Anabai giggled as she uploaded photos of her gold-plated nails and captioned them, "Queen Ting's nail polish crowned." Adoga, ever observant, looked up and asked softly, "Daddy, are you okay?" "I'm fine, son," Owoicho replied, forcing a thin smile. But he wasn't. For months now, he'd felt it building inside, the quiet disgust, the ache of being nothing more than a wallet to his own family. They were blind to the sacrifices he'd made. All they saw was what he gave, never what he endured. That night, when the house finally went still and even security guards were dozing in their cubicles, Owoicho picked up his phone and dialed. "Abutu," he said calmly, "shut everything down. Liquidate the public holdings. Move everything into the private offshore account. Tell the press I'm stepping away from business, a sabbatical." Abutu, his personal assistant of over 10 years, gasped. "Sir? That would cause panic in the market." "I know," Owoicho replied. "Let it. And Abutu, make sure my family thinks we're broke." The next morning, Owoicho gathered everyone in the living room. Onyinai walked in frowning, her wig barely adjusted. "Owoicho, what's this early morning drama?" He looked at them all, took a deep breath, and said, "I have bad news. I've lost everything." The silence that followed was electric. The businesses, the accounts, all gone. "We have to leave this house today." Onyinai screamed. "What do you mean gone? You're joking, right?" "I wish I was." "We're homeless." Anabai shrieked, nearly dropping her phone. "You mean we're poor?" "We still have one thing," Owoicho said, reaching into his pocket and pulling out an old key. "My father's village house in Otukpo. It's the only thing left." Anabai gasped. "Village? Me? In a village? God forbid." Onyinai's face twisted. "You stupid man. What kind of disgrace is this? How can you be so careless?" Owoicho didn't argue. He simply walked out. Adoga quietly followed. "Dad," he whispered, "don't worry. We'll be fine." Owoicho paused, heart aching at those words. He turned and for the first time in years, hugged his son. "Thank you, Adoga. You don't know what that means to me." By evening, the family was packed into an old, rusted car Buta had acquired. No drivers, no maids, no escorts, just them. The ride was long and dusty. Onyinai grumbled the entire way. Anabai kept trying to find network signal, holding her phone up like it was a sacred relic. Adoga quietly enjoyed the breeze, occasionally reaching forward to squeeze his father's shoulder. When they arrived at the compound, Onyinai stepped out and gasped. This is a house?" The mud brick bungalow stood crookedly, the zinc roof rusting at the edges. A cracked wooden door creaked when Owoicho pushed it open. Inside were only 2 plastic chairs and a table. Cobwebs hung from the corners like old curses. Anabai nearly vomited. "There's no AC, no Wi-Fi, no bathroom mirror. I'm not staying in this trash," Onyinai spat. "I will die here." "You won't die," Owoicho said. "You'll live simply." But they didn't listen. That night, the family slept on a small foam mattress on the ground. No generator, just a flickering lantern and a chorus of mosquitoes. The next morning, a village rooster crowed. Onyinai screamed from under her wrapper. "Is that demon bird shouting at me?" Owoicho chuckled quietly and stretched. It's time to start our new life. Later, he brought out a rusty hoe and walked toward the small farmland at the back of the compound. Onioni and Anabai watched in horror. You want us to farm? Onioni yelled. You finally lost your mind. Anabai crossed her arms. I'd rather die of hunger. I'll go with you, Daddy, Adoga said simply. Owoicho looked at his son and felt a warmth in his chest. Then let's go. That afternoon, as the sun scorched their backs and Owoicho tried to remember how to till the earth, Adoga helped him arrange the firewood for cooking. I remember watching the village boys do this during Christmas, Adoga said, blowing air into the flame. They made it look easy. You're doing well, son, Owoicho replied. But while father and son worked, Onioni sat by the compound gate under a mango tree, fanning herself with a palm leaf and muttering, God punish poverty. And that was when she saw him. Chief Okanya, the village's most flamboyant man. His wrapper shimmered in the sun, his gold chain heavy on his chest. He had money, status, and no shortage of women around him. Onioni's eyes lit up. She adjusted her wrapper, wiped the sweat off her neck with her scarf, and stood up slowly. A new plan was forming in her mind. She smiled to herself. Let the test begin. The village of Otukpo moved slowly under the sun's weight. Palm trees swayed lazily. Goats bleated in the distance, and women carried buckets of water balanced perfectly on their heads. But inside the Adum compound, a storm was quietly gathering. Onioni's mind was no longer in the village. It was on Chief Okanya. Since spotting him 2 days ago, she had done everything to get his attention. Walked past his compound daily, fetched water from the stream near his hut, even joined a women's group just to sit under the mango tree often passed. And it worked. On the 4th afternoon, Chief Okanya finally called her. You're not from here, he said, eyeing her from head to toe. I'm not, she said with a half smile, pretending to limp slightly. My husband lost everything. We had to move here from the city. Life has been cruel. Chief Okanya burst into laughter, exposing gold-coated teeth. A beautiful woman like you should not suffer. Sit down, my dear. Let me tell you something sweet. Onioni sat under his shaded hut, sipping cold malt brought by one of his many young companions. Her eyes danced with excitement. Meanwhile, back at the Adum compound, Owoicho and Adoga were learning how to survive. Let's plant cassava here, Adoga said, pointing to a clearing behind the hut. It'll grow well with the soil. You're a smart boy, Owoicho said, patting his son on the back. He had not told Adoga the truth yet, not about the test or the hidden wealth, but he could already see it. His son was different, loyal, grounded, the kind of man who would one day lead with wisdom. But not all seeds were growing in light. That evening, Onioni returned home with a new wrapper, fresh fish, and a bag of rice. Owoicho looked at her with suspicion. Where did all this come from? Oh, some women I met at the stream gave me, she replied too quickly. They're kind people. Owoicho didn't argue, but Adoga noticed her perfume. He noticed her smooth fingers, unlike someone who would fetch water or wash clothes. And he noticed a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Still, he said nothing. That night, as the lantern flickered and mosquitoes hummed in her ears, Owoicho turned to his son and said, Adoga, if we never became rich again, would you still be proud to be my son? Adoga turned over on the mat and looked at him in the dark. Yes, Daddy, because you're still trying. That's what matters. Owoicho's heart broke open again, quietly. But the cracks in the rest of the family were already showing. Across the village, under a neem tree near the local market, Anabai was beginning her own path. She had discovered Age, a married man with a plump belly and a grocery store. He first spotted her struggling to lift a bucket at the stream. Let me help you, he offered. Anabai, eyes narrowed and lips glossed, said, And what will you want in return? Age laughed. Just a smile, maybe more if you let me. It didn't take long. She started meeting him behind his store, where he'd pass her small bundles of cash, meat, even a second-hand dress. She would giggle and call him Daddy Extra. But Otukpo was a village. Secrets didn't stay buried for long. By the third week, Amina, Age's wife, stormed into the Adum compound. Where is that shameless girl? That thief of husbands? Anabai sat on a plastic chair, legs crossed, chewing gum. Who's shouting like a market parrot? She asked lazily. Amina charged. You think you're smart? Stay away from my husband or I'll show you who I am. Anabai stood and looked her up and down. Please, don't make me laugh. Your husband chased me, not the other way around. Maybe if he looked better, he wouldn't be bored. Neighbors peeked from their windows. Someone gasped. Amina's voice cracked. I've been married for 18 years. I will not let a city rat ruin my home. Then chain your husband. Anabai spat, stepping forward. Because I'm not going anywhere. Owoicho had heard every word from behind the side wall, where he was fixing a bench. He stepped forward slowly. Anabai. She turned, rolled her eyes. What now? I heard everything. So what? She snapped. Owoicho's voice was steady but heavy. Why are you doing this? You're young. You had everything, education, comfort, choices. Why settle for crumbs? Crumbs, she scoffed. Don't preach. You're the reason we're here. Anabai, I'm still your father. She barked a bitter laugh. No, you're the man who dragged us from comfort to this dirty village. I'm just surviving. She walked past him and into the house, leaving a silence so deep it rang in his ears. Adoga, who had witnessed it from the doorway, clenched his fists. The next day, Owoicho sat outside peeling yam when Adoga approached. Daddy, what are we really doing here? Owoicho looked up. Are we truly poor? Or is there more to this? For the first time, Owoicho didn't lie. Adoga, he said slowly, it was all a test. Adoga's eyes widened. I needed to know who we really were, who they really were. The truth can't be bought in a mansion. It lives in hardship, in darkness. And now, I know. They sat in silence. Then Owoicho said, pack your things. We're going back to the city. But in another part of the village, Onyanai was laughing in a hotel room. Chief Okanya handed her 20,000 Nigerian nairas in cash. My queen, he said, I've already told the elders. I will become king. And when I do, you'll be my wife. We'll build a mansion together. Onyanai's heart fluttered. You're serious? Very. The king is old. Soon his throne will be empty, and I will sit on it. Onyanai clutched the money like a sacred gift. Her dreams were alive again, but unknown to her, that throne would never belong to Chief Okanya, because the real king, the one with power, money, and honor, had just decided to return. And this time, he wasn't coming alone. Onyanai Adum stood before a mirror cracked at the edge, adjusting her gelly with practiced elegance. The red lipstick she applied didn't match the plainness of the small village room she stood in, but she wore like a queen, at least in her own mind. Across the room, Anabai tied her scarf with less enthusiasm. Her slippers didn't match. Her skin, once glowing from expensive creams, now showed signs of sunburn and mosquito bites. Mummy, Anabai said with a low voice, are you sure about this king thing? Onyanai turned, eyes glimmering. I am more than sure. Chief Okanya is a man of power. He told me the elders are backing him. Any moment now, I'll be wearing coral beads and ruling this village. Anabai smiled weakly. Just don't forget me when you become queen. Forget you could? Onyanai laughed. You'll be my princess. They both laughed, but their joy was like borrowed perfume. Sweet at first, but it would soon fade. Meanwhile, in the city, the real game was unfolding. Owoicho and Adoga stood in front of a mansion, so beautiful it could have been a film set. The electronic gate opened slowly as Owoicho pressed a remote. Adoga's mouth hung open. Dad, is this really ours? Yes, Owoicho replied, placing a hand on his son's shoulder. We were never poor, son. I needed to find out the truth. And now that I have, we'll start over. Just us. They walked through the house. Polished floors, shining chandeliers, fresh white curtains blowing in the breeze. Adoga touched the soft leather sofa, as if it might disappear. You really gave up everything to test them? Owoicho nodded. Sometimes, you must lose comfort to find character. They spent the rest of the day settling in. A new life had begun for father and son. Back in Otukpo, Onion Eye's dreams were turning into gossip. It started small, women whispering under mango trees, children giggling as she passed. But things escalated quickly. That afternoon, as she walked towards Golden Moon Lodge to meet Chief Okanya, a woman stepped into her path. Her name was Agbo, one of Chief's older wives. "So this is a famous city woman," Agbo said, arms folded. "The one shaking her, but for my husband." Onion Eye scoffed. "Watch your mouth. I don't speak to local women." Agbo stepped forward. "You think because you came from the city you're better? Let me tell you something. Chief Okanya is not who you think he is." "Jealousy is loud," Onion Eye said, trying to walk past. But Agbo blocked her again. "All those chains he wears? Fake. That land he talks about? It belongs to the government. And the King's Council? He's not even on the list." Onion Eye froze. "Ask around," Agbo continued. "You'll find out soon enough." She turned and walked away, leaving Onion Eye in the middle of the road, shaken. But Onion Eye refused to believe it. Later that evening, in Okanya's private room, she confronted him. "Tell me the truth," she demanded. "All these things you said, the throne, the lands, the gold, are they real?" Chief Okanya's smile faded. He took a sip of palm wine. "So you've been listening to jealous women?" "Answer me," she snapped. The chief stood up slowly, towering over her. "You think you're special? You left your husband just because money disappeared. And now you're here acting like a queen. But let me ask you, what kind of woman chases gold and forgets her dignity?" Onion Eye took a step back, wounded. "You used me." "No," he said coldly. "You used yourself." Tears filled her eyes. "I left everything for you." The chief picked up her wrapper from the bed and threw at her. "Get out." And just like that, her royal dream shattered. Back at the Adum compound, Otz, the village gossip, arrived breathless. He waved a newspaper in the air. "Madam Onion Eye, Sister Anabai." Anabai hissed. "You again?" "I just came from the city," Otz said proudly. "I saw your husband. He's living in a mansion, bigger than the last one. There are cars, clean clothes, security guards. It's his house." Onion Eye burst into laughter. "You need rest. That man is a security guard." "It's true," Otz insisted. "I saw him with my eyes. He had a remote for the gate. He said it was his house. Maybe he was washing car." Anabai mocked. "Let him continue deceiving people. You think that man can ever rise again?" Onion Eye added, "He's finished." Otz shook his head. "You can mock all you like. But mark my words, you both lost something bigger than money." He walked away disappointed, but the damage was already done. That evening, Onion Eye sat quietly outside. The villagers had started calling her names. Chief's leftovers. Queen of fake gold. City woman turned dust. Inside the hut, Anabai wasn't faring any better. Aja's wife, Amina, had returned with two of her sisters. They stormed the house and dragged Anabai into the open. "This is the one." Amina shouted, "This is a snake." Anabai scratched and slapped as they pushed her to the ground, tearing her scarf. "You think you're finer than us?" One woman shouted. "She doesn't even have shame," another added. Villagers gathered to watch. Laughter, whispers, phone recordings. Anabai screamed, "Leave me alone." Owoicho's voice, strong and clear, came from the corner. "Stop." The crowd parted. Owoicho stood beside Adoga, both clean, well-dressed, and standing tall. Onion Eye stepped forward. "What were you doing here?" "I came to see what you become," Owoicho said. "And now I've seen enough." Anabai scrambled to her feet, her face red with shame. "You told everyone I was finished," he continued. "But you were the ones who lost. Not me." Onion Eye tried to speak, but no words came. Owoicho turned to Adoga. "Let's go." They walked away slowly, dignified, untouched. And in that moment, every villager watching knew the truth. As night fell, Onion Eye sat by the doorway, knees to her chest. Anabai lay inside, her face covered. The silence between them was heavy. "I thought we were winning," Anabai whispered. Onyinai didn't reply. She no longer had words, only memories and regrets. Morning crept quietly into the village of Otukpo. Smoke rose from scattered clay kitchens. Children chased goats through narrow paths, and hens pecked at the dirt beside thatched fences. But in the Adum compound, silence hung like a curse. Onyinai sat outside with swollen eyes, her wrapper carelessly tied and her hair wrapped in a faded scarf. Her fingers twitched restlessly as she stared into the dusty air. Inside the hut, Anabai lay curled on the mat, her body bruised more by shame than fists. The echo of laughter from the villagers still rang in their minds, mocking, piercing, unforgettable. They had fallen, and the whole village had watched. Hours passed. Finally, Onyinai stood up and walked toward the stream, shoulders hunched like someone carrying invisible stones. As she bent to fill her bucket, a group of women nearby paused their conversation. One whispered, then another giggled. They all turned to look at her. "She still get mouth yesterday," one murmured. "Now she looks like a ghost." "Chief Don dump her sharp, another added. Onyinai heard them, every word, but she said nothing. She walked back slowly, water sloshing in her bucket. But even before she reached the compound, she noticed something strange. The compound gate, open. Inside, standing calmly as if he had never left, was Owoicho. He wore a clean shirt tucked neatly into his trousers. A simple leather bag sat by his feet. Behind him stood Adoga, wiping dust from a new generator. "Wah, what are you doing here?" Onyinai stuttered. "We came to pack the last of our things," Owoicho replied without looking at her. Adoga added, "We gave the landlord a little money to extend our stay, but we're leaving today." "Leaving?" Onyinai echoed. "To where?" Owoicho looked at her now, eyes calm but distant. "Back to the city?" She stepped forward. "But I can have said something about you living in a mansion, that you're rich again." Owoicho simply turned and picked up a small box of tools. "We were never poor." Onyinai froze. "What?" "I never lost anything," he said. "I created a test to see what my wealth had done to this family, to see who loved me and who only loved the life I provided." She stood still, eyes wide. "So, all this, the village, the suffering, all part of the plan." Anabai appeared in the doorway, her scarf slipping off her head. "Daddy, what are you saying?" "You betrayed your name for meat and cash," he said to her softly. "You sold dignity for attention." Anabai's face crumpled. "I'm sorry. I was scared. I didn't know." "You knew," Owoicho said. "You just didn't care." Onyinai reached for his arm. "Please, Owoicho, I was desperate. I thought we had lost everything. I was trying to survive." "By sleeping with a man who wore fake gold?" he asked. She dropped her hand. "I watched," he continued. "Listen, saw how easily both of you switched sides when comfort disappeared." Tears filled Onyinai's eyes. "Please forgive us. Let's go back. Let me come with you." Owoicho sighed. "This test wasn't just for you. It was for me too. To see if I was strong enough to walk away from people who didn't value me." "But we're your family," she cried. "Family is more than blood," he replied. "Family is loyalty, respect, standing together in lack, as well as in plenty." She fell to her knees. "Please don't leave us here." But Owoicho was already walking toward the gate. Adoga picked up the last bag. Anabai ran out. "Daddy, I'll change. I swear." Owoicho paused, turned slightly. "Change because you want to, not because you're losing benefits." Then he walked out. 2 weeks later, in the city, the gates of the mansion opened again. This time, a black SUV pulled up the driveway. The security man stood straighter than usual. The garden was freshly trimmed. The house gleamed under the afternoon sun. Inside, Owoicho and Adoga sat at the dining table. 2 bowls of hot rice and pepper soup sat steaming before them. A flat-screen TV played a documentary in the background. Calm, quiet, peaceful. "You know," Adoga said as he sipped the soup, "sometimes I miss the village air." Owoicho chuckled. The air was free. The peace wasn't. They shared a quiet smile. Then the doorbell rang. Abutu, the assistant, opened it and brought in a parcel. "Sir, someone dropped this." "No name. Just this." Owoicho opened the parcel carefully. Inside, a folded scarf, a gold-plated bangle, a note that read, "I was foolish. If you ever forgive me, come find me under the mango tree." Owoicho folded it silently. "Burn it," he said. Abutu nodded. Meanwhile, in Otukpo, Onion Eye sat under the old mango tree, clutching a bag of maize she had begged for from the market. Her wrapper was torn, and her feet were dusty. Beside her, Anabai sat barefoot, staring into space. They had nothing left but memories. No chief, no gold, no home, no man to blame. But a final twist was still coming. One evening, as Onion Eye walked past a church near the village square, she heard familiar voices. Two women were talking loudly behind a small shop. "Did you hear? That man, Chief Okanya. He's not even from this village originally. Oh, yes. His real name is Moses Idoko. He came here years ago after he was chased from another village. Imagine, even his gold chains are brass. And he told Madam Onion Eye he was becoming king. A whole fiction." They both burst into laughter. Onion Eye leaned against the wall, her knees weak. Everything had been a lie. The riches, the promises, the mansion dream. She wasn't a queen. She wasn't even a guest. She had been played. And now she had nothing, only the dust beneath her feet and the weight of her own shame. The morning sun rose lazily over Otukpo, casting long shadows on the red soil. Birds chirped cheerfully from the trees, but there was no cheer in the Adum compound. Onion Eye sat on a wooden stool outside the hut, staring blankly at the dust blowing across the yard. Her wrapper hung loosely around her chest. Her skin, once pampered by expensive lotions, now bore sunburns and insect bites. Beside her, Anabai stirred a small pot of watery porridge over a smoky firewood stove, her eyes distant. Life had reduced them to shadows of their former selves. Weeks had passed since Owoicho and Adoga had left the village, and not a word had come from them. Odds, the village gossip, had returned once, confirming what Onion Eye still didn't want to believe. "He's living in wealth again," Otts had said. "Big mansion, big cars. He's shining like a senator. But he told me one thing." "What?" she had asked, heart pounding. He said, "Tell them I left with nothing and came back with peace. That's more than gold." She hadn't said anything. She had only walked back home with a plastic bag of smoked fish and her pride crushed beneath her feet. Across the country, in the city of Abuja, a different story unfolded. The Adum mansion buzzed with quiet, deliberate activity. Gardeners trimmed flowers. A personal chef prepared a light breakfast. Inside, the softened piano filled the air as Owoicho sat by the wide balcony, sipping tea. Adoga joined him, dressed in a crisp white shirt. "We received another letter," he said. Owoicho glanced at him. "From her?" Adoga nodded. "She says she's sick. No money. She wants to see you." Owoicho closed his eyes briefly, then opened them again. "Did you reply?" "No." Owoicho stood, gazing down at the fountain in the compound. "Pain teaches. But if the student is proud, she never learns." "Do you miss them?" Adoga asked quietly. Owoicho didn't answer immediately. "Sometimes," he finally said, "but not who they became. I miss who they were, before greed turned their hearts." They stood in silence for a while, the breeze lifting the curtains inside. Then Owoicho said, "Prepare my car. I have one last visit to make." Back in Otukpo, Onion Eye's health was deteriorating. She coughed violently now, her breathing uneven. The villagers who once whispered about her now avoided her compound altogether. The mighty city woman had become a village ghost. Anabai tried to care for her, but she too was a shell. Her adventures with merry men had ended the day a young man publicly shamed her in the market, exposing her for blackmailing him with pictures. Her name was stained, and no one dared associate with her anymore. That evening, as Onion Eye lay on the mat inside, she whispered, "Anabai." "Yes, Mommy." I had it all, and I lost it. Anabai's voice cracked. We both did. I thought money was love, Onion said, coughing. I thought comfort was character. But it wasn't. Your father, he was a good man. I was a foolish one. Anabai nodded, tears falling freely. I should have followed Adoga. He was the only one who saw clearly. Suddenly, a knock came at the wooden gate. Anabai wiped her face and stood up. She opened it and froze. Standing before her was a man she hadn't seen in weeks. Owoicho, dressed simply, calm, strong. Behind him stood Adoga, holding a black bag. Dad? Anabai's voice broke. Where's your mother? Owoicho asked. Anabai led him inside. When Onion saw him, she tried to sit up. Owoicho. He sat beside her, watching her face closely. You're sick, he said. Yes, she whispered. But the real sickness was here. She tapped her chest weakly, long before the fever came. I didn't come to gloat, Owoicho said. I came because once we were a family. I failed you, she whispered. You failed yourself, he replied. But God gives grace, even when we don't deserve it. Onion reached for his hand. Can you forgive me? Owoicho looked down. He remembered her laughter, her pride, her betrayal, but also her strength, her role as the mother of his children, the woman who once believed in him. I forgive you, he said softly. She closed her eyes, a single tear rolling down her cheek. Thank you. He turned to Anabai. You. Anabai fell to her knees. I don't deserve anything, but I'm sorry. I was selfish, arrogant. I destroyed my name. You still have a future, he said, if you're willing to work for it. I am. He stood. I'll arrange for a doctor to come. Then you'll come back to the city, but not to the mansion. Not yet. You'll start fresh, from the bottom. Whatever it takes, Onion whispered. Weeks later, in the city, a new story began. Owoicho stood outside a modest two-bedroom flat in the outskirts of Abuja. Onion stepped out slowly, dressed in plain ankara and a scarf. She smiled, genuine for the first time in years. Inside, Anabai was preparing a small meal, one she had cooked herself, without a housemaid or driver waiting in the wings. Adoga sat at the dining table, helping her slice vegetables. There were no chandeliers, no marble floors, but there was peace. At the mansion, Owoicho entered alone one evening. The halls echoed with silence. He looked at the family portrait still hanging on the wall, all four of them, years ago, before money changed everything. He walked past it and smiled. Not everything gold shines, and not every crown sits on the head. Sometimes, the real kings are those who walk away to find the truth, and sometimes the real queens are those who lose everything, only to find themselves again.